Okay. So I need to, my spotlighted on, just remembered, is the owl
That's you right here.
spotlight for everyone? There we go. And now just go to gallery view. Yeah, that's right.
Isn't that wild? We think of the technology. that's
It's
in-
amazing.
Isn't this incredible?
We can't take
It
this
was
for
new,
granted.
it was something else altogether.
But I have to show off, I'm the only one here that's teaching a hybrid class.
Oh,
Oh,
the other,
really?
I'm the only one because it's difficult. Because you're.
yeah, it is.
Because I am superwoman.
Yeah.
No,
Clearly.
because I actually feel like then we have Chicago,
Yeah.
Israel, and we have Toronto, and we have people who just physically can't make it out, or the timing is difficult. We have all the reasons that people can't be here in person. But I hate teaching just a school. I want to teach
Of
people also in
course,
real
of
life. So that's why, anyway, but I deserve. You do.
Oh, yeah.
There are.
Kohl ha-kavod.
Thank you. You're
Okay.
my witness.
And a lollipop.
Thank you. My daughter Hadar keeps a stash of candy. Have you noticed?
Yes, I did notice.
She has a
yeah,
little
she goes to that.
cabinet.
I saw her
And
on
then we had
Saturday.
to switch it because she said somebody found it and was taking her candy.
Oh,
So we switched to a different cabinet. But every kid should have a candy stash, that's true. You know what? Like, that's great.
I think that, I
And she
think
gives it
you're.
out to other kids. I told her she's allowed to keep it here as long as she shows it.
Oh,
It does you. So we are on to a new story. And I don't know if this is going to be disappointing. It's not, not as racy. It's not as
the
interesting.
title's pretty racy.
But actually, yeah, the title is A Knife. This will be another sort of edgy topic in some way. We're going to meet the angel of death.
Oh,
We're going to encounter questions of life and death. And we will meet Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. So what I've done is on the handout that, I'm going to just paste it in our Zoom chat. I'm about to share the screen, but before I do that, I'm going to put it in the chat for those who want to access it themselves. Okay, and now I'm going to share my screen, so you don't have to click on that I just put in the chat, but you may.
Oh, are you going to be putting it up? Oh, okay. Got it.
So I'm just saying I did it both ways. Some people might want to open it on their screen or look at it later. So that's the link to Sefaria.
when you
Um,
see Yochanan, is that the Yochanan that we read with Reish Lakish?
Yes.
So when Reish Lakish is
Yes.
Reish Lakish.
Yes.
And every time you see Yochanan,
This is our
it's-
friend.
It's,
Yes.
I think so. I wasn't
Yes.
sure.
Okay, so we are encountering Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi eventually, starting with some other rabbis first. And then really we're telling a story about Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. He was an early Amora, that was one of the earlier rabbis of the Talmudic era. So if the Mishnah was codified around the year 200, he lived in the 200s, like in the early then Talmudic era. So he's not one of the Tanaim, those are the Mishnah rabbis, but one of the Amoraim, the Gemara or the Talmud. So 3rd century. In the land of Israel. He's not in Babylonia, he's in Israel. And we're going to learn about how righteous and special he was. He was so special that he basically could thwart the angel of death. And we're going to learn about his behaviors with regards to people who are marginalized, people who are stricken with an ailment that nobody else wanted to be near them. And we could have some commentary about distancing and mask wearing and like reading this in a post-COVID or current COVID. I should never say post-COVID, but and everything we've been through era is very interesting and different. So what we're doing is, thank you to this educator, Dan Selsberg, who I don't know, but he put all of these Ruth Calderon texts together on Sefaria. In the physical handout, it just says DS, but it's like faded, but it's Dan Selsberg. That's That's the name.
Right.
Yeah. That's just the name of the person who put Ruth Calderon's text here into Sefaria so I can access it. Okay. On the screen, our friends are seeing his name. So the story that we are seeing here in the Ruth Calderon book doesn't begin here. It begins just a little of the ways down toward the bottom where it says Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. That's where Ruth Calderon starts, but Dan Salzberg has given us the prequel, so to speak. So you can see the context, which is really important because what you start to see here is all of these rabbis who used to avoid people who were afflicted with this particular disease. And they don't translate it, they say ra'atan. And I tried to do a little research on what we think ra'atan might have been, maybe a derivation of smallpox, maybe something else, something that was highly contagious. That's the bottom line. So Rabbi Yochanan would say, this is sort of the preamble. We're not going to go deeply into this. I promise I'm going to go into the Hebrew soon for those who want to. But Rabbi Yochanan would say, stay away from even the flies who are near the people with ra'atan. Rabbi Zera wouldn't sit downwind from them. Rabbi Elazar wouldn't enter a tent of someone who's afflicted with ra'atan. Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi would not eat eggs from an alley in which someone with ra'atan lives. So there's not just social distancing, but real avoidance. Okay, that's the context in which we meet Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, who has a very different policy. Okay, so we're going to jump into the story. Questions, anything so far? In the Hebrew, on the left side, you won't see his name, you'll see his acronym, Resh Yud Bet Lamed in the Hebrew toward the page. And in the English, it's Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. Handout is a little bit looking at yours because so I want to know where. Ready? Okay. So Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, yeah, that's where we're starting. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, Michrach behu, that means attached himself to them, people afflicted with this. The Asik b'Torah, and would study Torah. So everyone is avoiding these people. He would jump right in. Not only that, learn Torah with them. And he would use this verse from Proverbs saying, the Torah is loving, the Torah is accessible, the Torah is Elat Ohavim Ve'Ya'alat Chen. It's a poetic way of basically saying that Torah is beloved and wanted to. I don't know if he's trying to say that it will protect him. I'm not sure. So he's saying it will bestow grace, it will bestow compassion upon him. So now the Talmud asks, if it bestows grace, im chen ma'aleh al lomdeha, if it bestows grace on those who learn it, igune lamigna, shouldn't it protect him also from illness? I'm not sure if that's what he was saying, but I think he's saying the Torah is compassion and want to offer it to these people. And now the Talmud is asking, maybe this would protect him. Maybe that's why he was able to be there. I mean, think about the places where he's going to be, all the places that the other rabbis won't go. So is he, I don't know, does he have like this magical force field around him? How could he do that? Every other human being is afraid of the contagion of this disease. So now the Talmud is going to give us a story about maybe how this did protect him. And so think about what is this saying about death and about his power over death and about the protection of his, either his physical life or his spiritual life. That's where it's going. So here's the story. Ki hava shachiv, when Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi was dying. Doesn't say how he was dying. It doesn't say he died from illness. Seems like when his time is up, when he's dying. Amrule l'malach hamovet. They said, the heavenly they, said to the angel of death, go do what you need to do. I'm sorry, go do whatever he tells you to do. Zil avid le re'ute. Go and perform his bidding is in the English
Wait, so
Um,
is
so-
that God?
there. So we don't know where this conversation is happening. There's an understanding that there's like a celestial world where one talks to one another, where angels all have a task. There's Raphael and Gabriel and Michael and, and then there's the Malach HaMavet. Now remember, the angel of death is not really autonomous. Every angel is a messenger of God. And they have a job to do. And the angel of death's job today is to pack his bags, and these are the people he has to kill. And it's not Satan, and it's not a devil, and he's not evil, this angel of death, but he is sort of the bearer of bad tidings. Yeah.
Sit down.
And the angel of death doesn't do whatever people want, except here. Go do whatever this guy wants. And the translation that we're looking at, remember, the non-bolded sentences are kind of a translator's note or filling in details, which usually is based on some commentaries. Go do whatever he says means he's a righteous man and he deserves to die in the manner he sees fit. So that's really striking. It reminds me of the class we did years ago where we talked about death and dying. We talked about, some people have a good death. Enviable. Right. Aaron had a beautiful death where he hands his Kohen clothing off to his son. He knows he's going peacefully and he knows exactly what's going to happen next time. And so, everybody has to die at some point, but this righteous person will have a beautiful. Someone is saying the sound might be off. Does anyone have a hard time hearing?
I have to use a headphone to hear better.
It's not clear.
Okay, it's telling me.
But there's kind of an echo chamber there and muffled,
It's muffled, that's exactly it.
and an echo chamber kind of.
Just a minute.
Did you
Okay,
put yourself on mute?
that's what I was just
Yes,
checking.
okay.
I'm on mute. Is it coming through? It's coming through the owl, right?
Yes, it must be.
It's better now for some reason.
It's better now.
I don't have a problem.
I'm gonna unmute this.
Uh,
Just
this-
put it-
Now I can't hear you.
Well, she's not saying.
Okay, so it's coming from there. It's coming from there. So it's okay now?
Yeah, for me, it's better. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, that's so strange. Good. Don't touch anything. I don't know. Okay. Does anyone in the Zoom room have any? See how hard it is to teach hybrid?
Yes,
Yeah, but
yes.
that?
It's much better now.
Okay, so does anyone in the Zoom room have a question or any clarification because you weren't hearing me well? Okay. I'm gonna share the screen again. Just gonna make sure I'm looking at
Maybe
the
it's
right
because
thing.
you were blocked, the microphone was blocked.
But
by
it's
your
this,
computer.
that's why I just said turn that, oh, unless it's coming through here. Oh, it's from there. I have no idea. What do I know? I know nothing.
You keep on getting messages, but I don't get them.
No, it's okay. It's a
Okay.
direct message
Okay.
saying that that was how I knew. Someone
Okay.
messaged me directly. That's okay. You're doing fine. You're doing your job. Okay, zooming again, sharing the screen. All right, angel of death, do whatever this righteous person, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, wants. So he goes, the angel of death goes. Azal itchazele. He goes, he sees him. So we're sort of seeing him arrive on the scene. And waits for Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi to tell him whatever he wants. It's remarkable. Usually the angel of death just shows up to do what needs to be done. And Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi now makes the request. Amar le. So in the Hebrew, it's Aleph Lamed. I'm pointing on the Zoom screen for those who are seeing me here. Aleph Lamed stands for Amar le. He said to him.
And often you have a lot of aleph lamed. He said to him, he said to him, he said to him, and then you have too many pronouns. You have to go back and look who said to who and who's responding. So that's where our translation helps. It says, he said to him, but our translation says, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said to him, Achve li duchtai, show me my place where I'm going to in the world to come. That's a rare privilege. So Amar le lechayai. Okay, I don't have a choice. I have to do whatever you tell me to. I'm going to show you your place in the world to come. Amar le, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says to the angel of death, wait a minute, havli schincha. Give me your knife, your weapon that you use in your killing job. Dilma b'va'atet li be'orcha. Lest you frighten me on our path. Like if we're going to be walking side by side, I want to have control over this knife because otherwise I'm afraid, I don't really trust you. And I'm going to be afraid that you're going to take me right now. So he gives over his knife. I mean, this is all, we don't have to ask like, is this true? Did this happen? Does the angel of death actually carry a knife? It's symbolic, right? The angel of death gives over the power of death to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Or the timing, because he's going to hand it back when he's ready. Oh,
Because the idea is
That's
I want to
interesting.
know the hour of my death rather than be surprised by it.
so he has control.
It's- There's some measure, at least control. of
So,
time.
well, we'll see what happens because he's going to get a little bit even more bold. Yahava Nihale, so he gives it to him. So now they're on a journey together, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi and the angel of death, going off into paradise, into the world to come. Kimata lahata, when they reach there, when they arrive. Dalye kamachvele. He lifted Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi so he could see where he was going, like get a little peek. I mean, what does this even mean? But he's looking over the wall. He's getting a glimpse into the next world, a very rare thing for a mortal. So remember how it
That's
started.
Moses in the,
He
in
is
the
the-
promised land.
Oh, nice. That's an image. Very nice. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who sits
What was that
among.
comment? Rachel, what was the last comment? I didn't hear it.
Thank you for reminding me to repeat. Gloria said it's like the image of Moses standing and looking over into the promised land that he knows he won't get to.
Okay, thanks.
But here, this is where he's going to.
Yeah, but still.
But I like that image. Yeah, thank you, David. So he says, so he picks him up, he could see it. And then what does Rabbi Yeshua do? He jumps and falls over, like he runs into the world to come. He runs into Olam Haba. Shavar Nafel Hu Gisa. He gets into the other side, like he slips over to the other side. And he's holding the knife. So now Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, somehow the mortal, has crossed over into the land of the spirit
Without being dead.
without ever being killed and holding control over the power of death. Connect this back to the man who sits among the diseased and doesn't get sick and doesn't die, and right? It's really interesting. So the reward for his deeds is that he does have some power or immunity. Very interesting. All right, so now the angel of death is a little shook up by this. So what does the angel of death do? He grabs the corner of his cloak. Nakte bekarna digline. He can't stop him. What is this image of the corner of his coat?
Joseph with Potiphar's wife.
Yes.
Oh, that's.
Yes. He runs away and she holds his cloak.
And
There's a
then
lot
he's
of
judged, and then
symbolism
he's judged
of
guilty
the coat.
unfairly.
Mhm. There's another coat, the coat of the king, and King Saul, his clothing is ripped, and it symbolizes that his kingship won't last. So yeah, the clothing, I mean, this is the parsha of the clothing of the Kohanim. The clothing make the man. The clothing have to do with who they are. And the angel of death can't even get to him. He's just holding the edge of his clothing, like desperately.
It's a role reversal, because usually you want to touch the clothing of the holy person to give you some kind of protection or security. And this is a role reversal.
So for those who can't hear in the Zoom, I'll just repeat it. Gloria is saying this is a kind of role reversal, like someone usually wanting to get to the corners of the garment of the king, someone who's of greatness. And here it's the angel of death chasing after a mere mortal. Okay, so the angel of death grabs the corner of his cloak to hold on to him. Like, no, he's not supposed to go yet without me. I'm supposed to send him there. Amar le bishvuata de lo atina. I swear to you, I'm not coming back. You angel of death. You have no control over me. I'm done. I'm here in I liked my place. I want to keep this seat. And so the text doesn't articulate this directly, but essentially now there's a heavenly feud between the angel of death and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. And the angel of death says, come back. And he says, no, I won't. He says, come back. No, I won't. So that's why now we have God speaking, because who could resolve this fight other than just God's self? So God now steps in sort of like a judge. Isn't this a great story?
Yeah.
Mythical,
It's
mythical
amazing,
proportion.
yeah.
So the Holy One, blessed be he, said, Amar Kudshabrichu. How do we decide if Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi is the kind of person that can win? What kind of righteousness yardstick am I going to offer? God says, let's talk about whether he how he kept his oaths. Ichil ashvuata nehadar ilo lo. If he ever had to dissolve an oath that he had taken because he couldn't uphold that oath, then he has to go back to the earth. But if he did not ever have to dissolve an oath, if he did not ever request dissolution of an oath, he need not return. That means if he's such a, what is this saying? He's such a careful, righteous, holy person who keeps his word, honest, then he merits to just stay here. Doesn't have to go back and deal with the angel of death in that world. And he says, since Rabbi Yeshua had in fact never requested dissolution of an oath, he was allowed to stay in paradise. So nihadar, that's the word, all of that is one word in the Hebrew, which is he stayed. Okay. So now the angel of death is stuck because Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi slipped through the cracks and he took his knife. What will happen if the angel of death doesn't have his knife?
We can't kill him.
Right.
What will happen if the rabbi uses it?
Then he's in trouble.
Is the
already
knife
in paradise.
useful to him in paradise?
Not really.
Not really. No, there's no life or death there. But if he keeps the knife symbolically, right?
Yeah.
Then what will happen? Everyone on earth will live forever.
That's right.
That's asking for a little too much control.
Okay, so that's what happens here.
This is a real Star Trek episode, going through the wormhole.
Yeah, it's like she's saying it's like Star Trek. You're like
Yeah.
flipping through
Going through
the
the
vortex.
time,
What's that called?
The wormhole,
The wormhole, the time. I don't remember.
time continuum,
Yeah. So the angel of death, Amar le havli sachinai, give me back my knife. And he did not give it back. Lo havakayahible. He's refusing. And again, now a divine voice steps in, because that's the only thing that can tell Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi what to do. Nafka bat kala. So it doesn't say God, but a bat kol is a heavenly voice of ambiguous source, and bat kols operate regularly in the rabbinic world, but a bat Kohl came and said, Amarle, hav nihale demitva'a libraita. Give it to him because creations need to die. Nothing can live forever. Nothing is completely invincible, like you are, Rabbi Yeshua, maybe. Yeah.
So this is an interesting juxtaposition with the original part of the story, which is the rabbi
They're
going
coming.
amongst
Yep.
the doomed to die.
Yeah. Maybe that was
He,
pride.
you know, that he was taking over God's role of deciding, you know, I'm gonna work amongst the people that are doomed to die. In his lifetime, that's what the rabbi did. He
I think he was taunting death.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
but
By
in his lifetime as well,
That's
not when
right.
he was on.
In
not
his
when-
lifetime,
Yes,
he was tempting death.
But that,
no, he
And he was-
wasn't. He was confronting it. He was
No, no,
saying,
no,
"These
but
people are
it
not gonna die.
raises-
We're gonna give them the full.
He's not accepting their terminal
yeah.
fate.
but it
He's-
raises the issue of whether he was doing that out of compassion for them or out of pride
Well,
in his own power.
either
Like,
way, he's taking on God's role.
well,
which
exactly.
God is
So
gonna
there
say,
is,
collect
so there are
It's-
overtones of
Yeah.
this idea that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi has power over death or can
or
determine
wants to.
or gives people life. I mean, also they are like dead if they're so ostracized,
Mhm.
and he brings them to life by bringing them Torah.
Yes.
And there's a comment here, he spent so much time with people who were sick and dying, he just wanted to stop it from happening. Oh, that's very nice.
Hmm.
He had the opportunity to just erase death from the world because he was surrounded by it. Thank you,
Hmm.
Max.
So it's magical thinking.
But because he had seen so much suffering,
Yes. No, that's good. That's a good interpretation.
I like that.
But
The closing line, we just have to read the closing line here, is what happens now as Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi himself, like we switch back, we understand, okay, the angel of death takes his knife, goes. And now we pan over to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi himself entering paradise. And it's none other than Elijah the prophet is announcing him, make way for the son of Levi, right? Bar Levi. Kame panu makon bar Levi, like make way for the son of Levi, this righteous man. Wow, right? So that's where the story ends. And this source sheet continues where the Gemara leaves off, just to show you kind of now these conversations that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi has once he's in paradise. So, uh-oh, what's happening here? Okay. Does everyone on Zoom give us a thumbs up if you can hear us okay on Zoom? Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're having some weird notifications, but it seems fine. So let's just keep reading a little bit. I'm going to read it only in the English now because this is not our primary text, but it's nice to see where it goes after. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi went and found in paradise Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. We're going to talk more about him in our next story. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai sitting on 13 golden stools. So Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai is a very holy man. He had studied Torah in a cave alone, rebelling against the Romans. And Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai says, "Oh, are you the son of Levi? I heard about you." He said to him, "Yes." And Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, "Was a rainbow ever seen in your days?" He says, "Yes." Now, a rainbow is actually not a good thing. Where did we
Noah.
Well,
encounter
after
the
the
rainbow?
flood.
After the flood with Noah.
But it is a good thing because it ensures that man is not going to be destroyed again.
Yes, so it is a necessary thing, but here what he's asking is, here, you'll see as
Did
the
you have a
text goes on.
disaster? He's asking.
Right, did you have, Rabbi Shimon retorted with, "So you're not the son of Levi," because he is a completely righteous man. During the lifetimes of completely righteous people, no rainbows are visible, as they are a sign that the world deserves to be destroyed by a flood. Whereas the merit of righteous protects the world from such things. In other words, when you see a rainbow, what they're saying is it means God wants to send the flood again right now. And the only reason God is not sending the flood is because God made a promise never again to do that. So God's sending the rainbow as a reminder. And he is asking, are you really Ben Levi? Because if you were really that righteous, you would never have seen a rainbow. Wait, it gets sort of more interesting. So the Gemara comments, now the sort of omniscient narrator says, and that is not so, for there was no rainbow seen at all during the lifetime of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, but he wanted to be humble. It says, but he thought, I do not want to take credit for myself by presenting myself as such a righteous person.
It's very circuitous. thing.
Very Talmudic here, right? He said, are you really who you say you are? Yes, I am. Have you seen a rainbow? Yes, I have. But he didn't really see a rainbow. He was just pretending he didn't see a rainbow because he wanted to be humble. And that's how righteous he was that he never saw a rainbow, but he didn't even say that he didn't see a rainbow.
So he was lying.
Are you following?
Not really, he's doubting that he's the son of Levi.
So, no, Ben Levi is his last name because Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi is his full name.
Yes.
So this guy, who's also very righteous, says, oh, nice to see you here in paradise. Are you Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi? He says, yes, I am. He says, oh, I'm going to do a little test, righteousness test. Did you ever see a rainbow? Because if he was really Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, there would have been no rainbow in his lifetime. So he answers, yes, I saw a rainbow. He says, oh, then you're not him. But it really was him. He was just being humble. Anyway, it doesn't even matter. The details don't matter. What matters is, first of all, it's so interesting that, like, who do you meet in paradise?
Yeah.
Who are the righteous
Right.
hobnobbing with the righteous? And they're also one-upping themselves, like, you're not the
Still
real,
arguing.
you're not the
Still
real
arguing.
deal.
If they were so righteous, they wouldn't be what?
But
So nothing changed. Here we're challenging people driving big cars, a bigger one than you have, and there you have people sitting on 30
And
chairs.
not only did he see a rainbow, but it was in a goblet, this big.
so the rainbow, I mean, this isn't going to come up in our core text, but what it really is about is an expression of how righteous he was. So righteous. How righteous was he? He was so righteous. He thwarted the angel of death. He was so righteous that God never needed a rainbow during his lifetime. He was really top of the line, creme de la creme. That's this Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi.
Does this text ever come back to the first rabbis who would not sit with those who were
No.
afflicted by Ratan? Did
No.
they make it to paradise?
Definitely not.
Oh, huh.
I don't know.
None of those rabbis are mentioned here. It then, so the Talmud works in tangents and then tangents to tangents and tangents to
Yeah.
tangents, and then it will come back to whatever legal conversation it had left behind, which had to do with, oh, I'm forgetting now, I looked it up, something completely inane and not related to this. It had to do with this is in the Tractate of Ketubot about marriages. Oh, it had to do with if a husband is ill and if a husband has a bad disease, is it boils, is it this, is it that, and then it goes into the disease. And remember, one of the main goals of the Talmudic text is just to preserve these teachings. So if they have this teaching, they're like, oh, where should we put it? Here, let's fold it in here. And we'll preserve this story here, even though it's a tangent.
I think it's very interesting though, because of the lives we have been called to live in this pandemic era, what
Yeah.
is the stance we are to have towards,
And nobody
yeah, but.
Nobody
You'd
finds
be
fault
put in
with the
jail
other
if you did that.
rabbis. The other rabbis are acting the way everyone's acting.
Yeah.
Nobody
absolutely.
finds fault with the Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi, I can't remember the whole list. But it's how righteous this rabbi was who acted so differently, who went right into the hospital ward without thinking twice.
But the righteous during COVID were the ones that immediately shut down their churches and shut down the synagogues.
But
and
think
shut
of
down-
frontline workers. He's a frontline worker.
Yeah, but there's
was-
an implication.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what it also
That
reminds
was
me of
unrighteous.
was
What's
during
that? Wait, Sandra and then
The
David.
one thing it kind of reminds me of is that during AIDS, when people were staying so far away from people, and then you had something like Princess Diana went and touched
Yeah.
people and went close to people to show that they're not lepers, and it made a big difference in the world's perception. So it's like you can't catch it. So here maybe people could catch it and die, but he's kind of, I don't know if he's kind of like in between, saying the Torah is maybe protecting.
Yeah, well, I'll just say that Ruth Calderon actually goes right to the AIDS epidemic. Just a couple of lines there when she
Really?
talks.
Oh, my.
Yeah, she says, we don't really know what this skin, it was like some kind of a skin ailment with open wounds or something like that, and we don't know what it was. But she said, if we take this illness as a metaphor, she says, they're similar to those who suffered from AIDS in our own day and age. They're gravely ill. The ways of contracting infection are not fully known, right? There was a time when people just didn't know what this was and how it was communicated, this disease. And as a result, people generally try to keep their distance from the afflicted, staying away even from the flies that touch them. That's what we saw in the beginning of our text.
Yes.
And from the alleys they pass through, and from any gust of wind that may have blown past them. It's like you get so extreme because of the fear and the anxiety and the unknown. And I remember in those early days of COVID, I would walk on the street somewhere and I'd pass by someone and I found myself holding my breath.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure how close can you get before putting yourself at risk. I mean, we really was. It was like this.
Because we didn't know.
We didn't know when we were washing our groceries, right? I mean,
Yes.
everything.
But there was no immunity at that point.
And there was no
Later on-
vaccine, there was no
later on, as the
protection, there
more
was
you
no.
were in front of it, you began to get some immunity.
Mhm.
And now it's different, you know.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Yeah,
There's people.
now we know a lot more.
That's right.
Yeah, but
And
in
fear of
those
the
days, they
unknown.
wouldn't have had any real knowledge. And so they would theorize. I mean, the part that we didn't read is the kinds of terrible treatments they would do for these things. And I mean, bloodletting and all kinds of things that this was their science or whatever. This was their medicine, what we call it, science. The rest of this story goes down this path of the angel of death, Rabbi Hanina, another rabbi who was.
answer
Oh, yes, thank you. The comment about, thank you.
The rainbow.
Does it mean that it's bad if we see a rainbow? So yes, according to this idea, a rainbow is not, that's, you know, the song, the Kermit the Frog, rainbow connection,
Yeah.
the sign of hope and beauty and colorful.
The other one, over the rainbow, that's.
And somewhere over the rainbow means somewhere in fantasy land. That's not what rainbows mean in the rabbinic era.
And it'll get better as well.
Yes, bien ale, thank you, right, COVID. There's no bien ale. A rainbow means something very different because of its origins with the Noah
It
story.
means none of us are fully righteous.
I just
That's
want
what
to
it
say, I
means.
see so many, I really got scared now.
It's
Oh,
what,
no.
sorry?
I see plenty of.
So many rainbows.
I
Oh,
was scared.
well, look, they also didn't understand the science of rainbows. They didn't understand how a prism, you know, works with the sunlight coming through the raindrops. And they didn't understand, you know, they saw it as this mysterious celestial being, the same way they would predict things in the stars. This goes along with that.
But interesting, they had a lot of wisdom already about medical or getting infected by flies, by the wind. So they had some
Yeah,
ideas
but if
already.
you would read, I mean, I know you're a physician, you'll appreciate this, but if I'll just pull up something that wasn't in here. I'm reading, you want to read, it's gross. It's like these terrible,
Oh, maybe
disease.
not.
okay, I'll read some of
Maybe
it, not all of
some.
it, not all of it. What are the symptoms of Ra'atan? This is before the before.
Mm.
I'm reading from the same section of Talmud. His eyes water, his nose runs, his drools come out of his mouth, the flies rest upon him. And what's the cure? He has to take this and this type of grass, and then the shell of this nut, and the shavings of smoothed hide, and the calyx of a red date palm. What's a calyx? Calyx? I don't know. And then you cook it together, and you bring the patient to a sealed house. And if that's not available in marble, you go to a house that has the thickness of 7 bricks. And then they pour 300 cups of this mixture on the patient's head until the skull is soft. I mean, this is how they were treating. And then I'm not going to tell you what they did to his skull.
No. Thank you.
I'm glad Trump
That
didn't
was
read
the
it.
good doctor here.
I'm glad Trump didn't read it.
They what?
I'm glad Trump didn't read it.
He also didn't drink borax, which we wish he would. But I think all of this is underscoring the futility of us trying to eradicate death. It's not a possibility.
So let's go
And
to
so-
the
so I
themes
think-
of this
I think that's
story.
what this is about. But I just
Thwarting
wanna have
death.
one other comment.
Not
about-
understanding illness and trying to find power over it. Yeah. What did you want to say?
I just, the comment about rainbows. Rainbows is a reminder of the covenant. It's not a harbinger of a catastrophe to come. So
No,
why-
it's the opposite, right? It's saying,
so why should it have negative associations?
So
So
the-
we see a rainbow, it's not God saying, remember what I told you? He's saying, I'm still here. I know things look bad, but I'm still here.
so
It
for
depends
those on
on
the
your-
Zoom who
on
can't
your
hear,
framing of
Gloria
how-
is saying we can frame the rainbow in a positive way, saying this is,
Clearly, we do.
we do, we certainly do in our day and age. This is a sign of God's
So I
presence and God's
just
covenant
think
and
it's-
God's agreement with mankind back to Noah. However, the rabbis
That
of the
he won't
Talmud,
destroy us.
that he won't destroy us, the rabbis of the Talmud said, means that God wanted to destroy us in this moment. That's how they understood it. You don't see it that way. We don't,
But even so, he didn't. So the rainbow is a life preserver. It's not him, God wielding a knife and saying, I'm gonna,
yeah,
saying
but
it
they,
both. Yeah,
It's proof positive.
anyway, I choose to see it that way.
Me too.
And
Me
then
too.
destruction.
It's not positive, it's not negative.
so there's another story, you know what, I don't know if we're gonna read this. The end of the story essentially is another rabbi trying to thwart the angel of death.
Hmm.
And the angel of death says, are you trying to do to me like your friend Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi did? And he says, you can't. And they go back and forth. Here, I'll share, I'm gonna share the screen again. We're gonna see a little bit of this because you'll see him again being related to Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa is also a friend of the angel of death. And when he was dying, he said to the angel of death, they said, this is the they said to the angel of death, go do whatever he wants. Another rabbi, tangentially, another rabbi who merits having the angel of death at his bidding, right? So he says to the angel of death, come back in 30 days. I'm just reading quickly down. I'm trying to zoom through this a little bit. Because I want to review my studies. Like I want to be fresh with my Torah in my mind when I arrive in heaven. So then he left and comes back 30 days later. And he says to the angel of death, show me my place in paradise. He says, very well. And Rabbi Chaina says, give me your knife. And that's where the angel of death says to him, you wish to do to me as your friend Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi did and escape? I'm wiser now. I'm not going to let you do it. So he says to him, bring a Torah scroll and see, is there anything written in it that I've not fulfilled? Like, I'm so righteous also. I'm worthy of entering paradise alive, as did Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. I'm just as righteous. And then the angel that said to him, but did you attach yourself to those afflicted with Ra'atan and study Torah with them as he did? And even so, despite the fact that he was not equal to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, when he passed away, a pillar of fire separated him from everyone. So that seems to be, he wasn't on the level of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. He couldn't snatch the knife of angel of death, but he did get a little something, a little recognition, this pillar of fire. I'm not going to go into it, but basically it's a kind of another sort of merit. So again, it's just showing the specialness of our Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, that he was on a different level. Why? Because he was willing to go where no teacher would go. He was willing to talk to the people no one else would talk to. He spent his life on the fringes.
He also lied. He wanted to be humble, but is it better to be humble than to lie?
Oh, because of the rainbow thing?
Yeah. Because lying is a commandment, right?
But do they fault him for, the Gemara says it was a figure of speech. He was just being humble. They don't seem to be troubled by his, there's an understanding that haughtiness is like the worst transgression. It's the worst to be haughty. And I wouldn't call it I don't know. It didn't trouble me the way it's troubling you. Did anyone else feel troubled by the lie of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi? I did see a rainbow, even though he didn't see a rainbow. He was just being humble, saying, I'm not so great.
They're still having chabruta in paradise.
Yeah, they're still, sorry, I'm just looking at the comments. I didn't miss a comment, did I? That's how they interpreted it. Yeah, that's how they interpreted it at that time. Exactly, the rainbow. Yeah.
He was still alive. What did he have for lunch?
Dairy as a.
What did he eat in the paradise?
But I really like though how he. Maybe, I don't know, like, one thing that strikes me about this text is how he wants to end suffering really on earth. And that's maybe what makes him so, what's it called,
Separated.
His intentions is the good of others.
and it's an impossible task.
Right. So that's what this story is telling us is you can't end suffering. That's part of the way the world works. You can't eliminate death. That's what gives sanctity to life. If there was no end to life, it wouldn't be valued as highly.
Leo.
Leo, can I just make a comment? Leo, you put your finger on it when you were talking about human beings comparing your car is bigger than mine and wanting to outdo the next person. Even in paradise, we're arguing which one is more righteous.
13 chairs.
13 golden stools he's sitting on. Yes, yes.
One stool.
We'll arrange for you to go peek and see what you're going to be sitting on.
An endless human obsession.
But
Are we still human? Are we still?
Well,
human?
he's alive still, the other one, so he's.
that's the question I'm gonna ask.
So-
You know, when you're talking about the word sin is haughtiness. So you still have that in paradise when God has called
So,
you from the
okay.
masses and said, you deserve to be here, and then even there, there's, but you know what?
First
Like
class,
you
second
better.
class.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's-
Even in paradise, some people are
So that-
treated better than others.
Trouble with
Okay, so the question in the room, for those who might not have heard it, is what is with this 13 golden stools and also fighting over who's more righteous, even when they get to paradise? Like, isn't all of that behind us? And why are they still competitive and fancy cars and good seats and, you know, the VIP section and the regular schlubs like us? So,
But the rabbi didn't ask for it. The rabbi didn't ask for the stools. They're just stating, this is how we're describing the levels. The rabbi isn't
Yeah,
requesting the 13 stools.
But what I think, Sandra, I think what you're getting at and what I wanted to respond is, how does the image of paradise operate in theology, in this kind of theology? It operates as a motivator for us in this world. If you do this work, you're going to get this seat. If you are this righteous, you're going to get this reward. It's an incentive system. And what language do we have to articulate that reward other than our physical, earthly language? You're going to get a Lexus and a gold ring but I don't
That's
think it's
problematic.
meant to be taken literally.
Yeah, so then we
You're
shouldn't
still,
write it that
they're
way.
still saying it's
We should-
problematic.
We shouldn't write
Did-
it.
Terry
Maybe
has
that
a
was their
comment.
reward, the recognizing. I see the comment here.
Yeah, and Terry wants to say something.
Terry, thank you. Terry, what did you want to say? Thank you.
I just came across a story with Rabbi Sachs in his like weekly Parsha thing about a couple in his community. And eventually, after giving and giving and giving their whole life, the wife had a stroke, and he stopped everything that he did, his like outward life, and just devoted his life to him. And the idea that you like pray to God to be able to stay alive long enough that you could look after your wife. I mean, that's where he was. And then they did pass 3 years later, very close together.
Wow.
So, you know,
Are you connecting this to the, help me out. Which part of this are you connecting it to? The question of
I guess fighting death.
fighting
by
against
by
death and then
by
accepting that this,
doing this righteous, you know, like just this righteous. And another story came across like that too, like the partner didn't want to die because they had to look after the other, or, you know, that was their, you know, so they fought the angel of death, even though they were themselves sick, their life was extended, you know.
actually, the last quote on this source sheet that we didn't read, but it's the last, gosh, in the physical packet, it's the back page. And I'm going to share my screen for a moment. Ruth Calderon is going to quote this, even though the Talmud does not quote it, but I'm going all the way to the bottom here. The verse from the book of Proverbs that says, Tzedakah tatzil mimavet, righteousness saves you from death. Tzedakah, the word tzedakah means charity also, obviously. So I remember as a kid, we had this song in like grade 2, Tzedakah, tzedakah, tatzil, tatzil mimavet. It was like one of these little songs that they taught us.
Song for a child.
Yeah, you're teaching kids about death. We didn't even know what it meant. I mean, we knew those words perhaps.
You
But
don't
that-
know. Kids don't know
that-
what it really means.
No, kids don't know what they're singing, but it stuck with me. But it
Yeah,
stuck.
yeah.
Tzedakah tatzil mimavet. I think that's what you're pointing to, Terry. This idea that what protected Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi from the power of death was his righteousness. Now we are going to have to put a big, I don't know, grain of salt, like take that with a grain of salt, because there are many, many righteous people who die. And even those righteous people that you described, Terry, at the end, they passed, because everyone is susceptible to death at the end of our lives. That's it.
Yeah, it's like
Nothing actually
Sadiq-
saves death.
Tzadik v'ralo v'rasha v'tovlo. I mean, like it's.
Right. Good things happen to bad people. Bad things happen to good people. Right.
Sometimes people hang on longer because they need to feel they just,
They're
their
not,
family needs them,
Yeah.
or,
yeah.
and they do everything they can to make sure that they're healthy, that they're doing the right things, just so they can take care of those they have to take care of.
Yes, and I mean, this is a very difficult subject, and I'm not trying to put forth one idea or another. I'm trying to illustrate the message that the story is trying to teach, that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi could have power over the angel of death. But he didn't really live forever. He still ended up somewhere else. He ended up in paradise. Yeah, Barbara and then Gloria.
I just had, going back to an earlier comment about Diana and AIDS, this whole thing about AIDS. It occurred to me that when she was doing this, going to hospices and touching and hugging, and that was a beautiful thing that she did. But by that time, we already knew. It was very well known that you could not contract AIDS that way. And
she wanted to teach the world that.
yes, and it was a beautiful thing that she did.
Right.
But it's kind of ironic that she died one day before Mother Teresa. So that when Mother Teresa died, who really did go amongst the afflicted and the ones that were contagious and everything else, and spent her entire life doing that and nothing else. It was like her death kind of, she got no, like she really didn't get.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, it was
Really?
kind of one of these, it was one of these huge ironies, media wise, that.
Yes,
She was
yes.
so righteous as she,
I know,
But you're saying that Diana's,
well, in that respect,
media
she was.
is part of the problem to begin with all of that. And that's interesting. And in the ancient world, they didn't know.
No, they didn't know.
And yet
They
so
knew
he was a
leprosy.
rebel.
They knew the
Leprosy. So what, by the way, Ra'atan seems to be different from leprosy,
Yeah.
but Ruth Calderon writes it as lepers. Just because I think that's more in the
Well, it's become a
common
meme for
yes,
anybody
meme,
that
exactly.
untouchable, anybody.
the untouchables. Gloria, go ahead.
So I don't mean to sound facile, but righteousness, it really is its own reward. If anybody here has worked, as a volunteer, or you've worked with people that are in dire straits, you feel good. I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah.
So it's not the end result, it's the process.
but don't
And
you,
it,
so,
yeah,
You're-
no, what?
aren't you working because you want to feel good? This is not,
Yeah,
that doesn't make you righteous, it makes you,
It
you're
makes-
looking for.
Self-interest.
it,
It can be both.
it's
So I-
reciprocal though, Leo. It's
Sorry
not,
for
no. I'm saying the initiative is to want to help somebody else.
Which is
And
not,
the great surprise is you're getting as much as you're giving.
exactly, that's
probably
what I
more.
want to say.
But I don't think that that's the initiative when people go to work with, not always anyway.
So I
Sometimes-
don't know if everyone in the Zoom room can hear the exchange, but I think there is there's a debate here, sort of between, are we helping for the sake of the reward, or is the helping its own reward? And I mean, I think it can be both.
Yes, it
Why
is.
can't it be both? Some people are motivated by the reward because we do get something out of it. Some people are maybe doing it for its own sake. I want to bring it back to the story.
But you can do the whole thing.
We don't know
anonymously
why.
And still feel satisfied. That's what I'm
But
saying.
that's a reward.
That's human.
That's already-
that-
yes,
that-
I
That's what
don't know
motivates
that.
us to do every action
Exactly,
in our
but-
life.
Francis has
there's
a really
always a reward.
interesting comment also in the chat.
Always.
The
That's
story
human
is the
beings.
knife. And so, it's interesting that it focuses on that implement, the knife, implying, can you steal or break a commandment for a higher purpose, which is helping against suffering? Can you steal a knife? Can you steal he was being aggressive, I guess, in some way toward the angel of death, stealing or lying
No lie.
for the sake of a higher purpose. That's
But
interesting.
in this case,
Yeah, no, it's fine.
okay, in this case, this was chutzpah because he was going against the words that somebody else, a commentator said, this is the way of the world. So he was playing
Right.
God,
Mhm.
and
Right.
that's not allowed.
Mhm.
That you cannot
was
do.
too
You
far.
cannot change,
Mhm.
you cannot change material reality or, try to change the cosmos. I mean, this is.
So I think of him as an idealist. He wants all death to go away.
Well, don't we all, but.
And that's where he hits a wall.
Yeah.
Mhm,
You can find righteousness, you can help people,
mhm.
but you can't make everything go away. That's just too naive.
I mean, as a rabbi, he says, look, God created the world, he created man, he had his purposes. There are mysteries that we are not entitled to know,
Right.
and one of them is death.
You went too far. You're
Yeah.
still human. You're not
Yeah.
God.
You're not God.
And Michael's comment, the rabbi was attempting to threaten heaven's authority, but still is honored. Yes, that's right. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's really interesting. So we're going to.
But we can question God, and we're not going to be totally put in chayrim. We're not going to be exiled and said, you went too far.
Yeah, I think we can question God, but we can't be God. I think that's Barbara's point here. We can challenge, we can question, we can alleviate suffering, we can help, we can bring Torah to the darkest corners of the world, but there are always going to be dark corners. And it's a very sobering
Mhm.
reality.
Mhm.
And
Humbling.
sometimes bad things are going to happen to good people. And he just, I really feel for him. He wants to go bring Torah to everyone, even the ones that no one will speak to. And when he has the opportunity, he says, let me grab that knife. But ultimately, he hit his limit. So we will stop here. We'll see next week what Ruth Calderon does, riffing on this story. Next, I just wanted to mention on a scheduling note, and Rachel, you can stop the recording.